pour yourself a cup of coffee and let's dive into a tutorial on the course website. We want to build an input system, and I've written an article about just that. It starts out with setting up a base class interface for an input manager. It's got the lifecycle callbacks, and it's got 3 members for the vertical factor, horizontal factor, and an action, in this case, jumping. What we want our input classes to do is take any input, whether that's from a Bluetooth controller or the sensors of the device or on-screen buttons, and translate them to these factors and potentially this binary jumping thing. So I'm just going to copy this code. So as you can see, if our joystick is pointed straight to the left, then I want the value in my vertical factor to be -1. And if my joystick is flipped all the way over to the right, I want it to be +1. And this way we can multiply whatever inputs we have with whatever velocities or movement speeds our entities are meant to have. It'll make sense in action, but this interface is super simple and robust enough to support almost anything you want to throw at it. So if you go to the week after this one, you have ways of implementing a virtual joystick, you have physical controllers, and that's Bluetooth. You have accelerometers, and even using them all at the same time. It's all relatively easy to do, so I highly recommend you follow through on those. So yeah, let's grab this into our project. I'm going to create a new package here for dealing with inputs. So input, and then create a new class called input manager. Let's replace that. Now we need to set up a layout. These buttons, the way I'm intending to build this, are implemented using the Android UI system, right? So we're going to do a layout for these buttons. They're just built-in button things, and then we're going to use them as binary controls. So grab that layout. There is a link to Pastebin here in case the HTML breaks this code when you try to paste it into the editor. So touch controller XML. The name of this file is not super important, obviously. So let's do resources, new Android resource file, touch control. Was it touch control or touch_control? And why am I even fiddling with it? Doesn't matter. So we do that. Should have been a layout, and it's not. So I'm gonna delete this and start over because I missed a setting. So layout, create new layout resource file. That's what I want. The root element doesn't matter because we will remove it anyway. So touch control or on-screen buttons, whatever you want. Remove all that XML. So now we have a relative layout with all of the buttons, and if I check the design, it's broken because I haven't defined the size of the buttons, and also I need to lock down landscape mode. Now I've defined a variable here called keypad size, which I need to define in dimens.xml, which isn't existing. So I'm going to grab this, create a new values resource, dimens, and then in here we want to have a new dimension named keypad size, and what value? 48 density independent pixels. That is the recommended minimum from Google for anything interactive on the screen. 48 dp is big enough that we can touch it with our fingers somewhat reliably. Density independent pixels means that it will always have the same physical size no matter what display it's being put up on. So yeah, that makes sense. Touch control. This now looks good. Look at the design. That's what we've built. Perfect. Let's just quickly drop into the manifest and lock down the rotation in this app. Here's my main activity. Android orientation, sensor landscape. So we can't rotate it. Well, we can, but it won't ruin our state. So, all right, we now have the controls, but if we look in our main activity, we fill the screen with game. Game is, of course, a surface view. The surface view does not support the view hierarchy, so we're going to have to put this into a layout where the game lies at the bottom, our controller on top of it, And then somehow we need to get the game instance from the layout system again. So let's start with creating a layout for our main. So that's activity main. And go to the text mode. We probably don't want this to be a constrained layout because we have nothing to constrain. We're just going to fill the screen. So the simplest type is a frame layout. That was even automatically for us. That's neat. And we need to provide a bunch of data here that I thought it would generate for me. Frame layout. No? Okay. We need to... Can I get a... Hang on. Touch control. Let me look at the source code. I want this schema, you see. And I also want the layout width and height to make sure that we fill the parent. Let me just grab those. Gravity is not important. I don't need keypad size. But layout width should be fill parent. And layout height, fill parent, and then close that. I think that's all we need. So we can simply include our control. So that's include a layout called at layout touch controls. So that's our controller. And this should be self-terminating like that. If I go to the design, this is now, yeah, our controls. We still don't have the game in place, but trivially, we can bring that in as a custom type. It is a surface view, but I should be able to do, what do I start with? I'm com.ulfben. So com, there we go. And that should be auto-terminating. What properties does the game need? I need to give it a name, that's for sure. So let's start with Android ID, because I need to reach this from the source code, remember? And I have to name it, so that's a plus ID and call that game. Why is this not agreeing with me? Layout height attribute should be defined. Well, we can do that. We do this and this to fill the parent, and that's our game. That can't be reviewed in the preview, right? But it says down there is a game thing. So if we go to our main activity, let me just make sure this is correct here. We have a frame layout, it fills the parent, we have the game, and then we have our touch controls over. That's good. So main activity. Instead of doing this, what we want to do is, let me see if we can work this out. We want to set the content view to our layout activity main, and then I need to initialize game by using find view by ID, and the view ID is game, because that's what I named it here. I think that should work. Probably this will crash because we don't have the constructors the view system cares about. Let's just try building this, make sure that the resources compile. I haven't messed anything up. And then we can go and generate the constructors we should have. And also check the time here. That's 8, that's fine. So build, build, build. Comesy, comesy. Perfect. So that crashes. Let me go check the logcat just to see what's going on. Fatal exception in main, unable to start activity, blah. Binary XML. There is an error in the XML file. That's actually not expected. So which one? Platformer game. Well, actually that might in fact be absolutely correct. I'm just gonna go double check touch controls. That looks fine. And activity main. That does look fine. So what I believe is happening, because it should be happening, is we go to game, and we have one constructor here taking a context. We, from the view system, we actually need to support a couple of different instantiations, and I'm not sure which one is most important here, but in essence, we're going to do right-click on surface view and generate all three of them. So the constructors, We already have the one for context, so we're going to grab these three that comes with a varying amount of, what's that? Choose fields to initialize. None. Right, so a bunch of constructors taking context, attributes, and other things we definitely do not care about as a game engine. And at the top here is our base one. It's important then that we call the super, just like it does here by default, but of course we want to initialize and in Java we cannot delegate constructor calls, so I'm going to move all the initialization out of the default constructor and instead call something like init, which means I need a new function down here that all constructors can use. So private void init. Come on, stop messing around. This is just the entire content of a previous constructor, right? And so now all of these inherited ones can have an init call after setting up the super. We can fold these back down because they shouldn't need anything else from us. But now let's see if it compiles. And I should check if there was any other issues here. Yeah, context attribute set, no such method. So that seems to have been the problem. Oh, here we go. So we have buttons. These are, like I said, view buttons from the Android operating system, the view system rather. And so they behave just like built-in buttons do. You can, of course, tweak these. You can create your custom ones. You can adjust their color, their animation, if they make button clicks and stuff like that. But yeah, now we just need to hook this up with a concrete class for reading out the input. Let's do that in the next video.